So hello everybody, and welcome again to another installment of Heal the Shadow in Your Relationships too. And today I am so pleased and honored to have with me Alison Armstrong. Hi Alison, thanks for being with us.
Hi everybody.
And I'm going to tell everybody about you a little bit. So Alison Armstrong is an author, an educator, a creator of the widely acclaimed Queen's Code workshop series and countless other series, actually countless seminars, really lots of stuff. And Alison asks the question, what if no one is misbehaving, including you? She explores the good reasons behind the behavior of men and women, such as fundamental differences in the ways we think, act, and communicate. She offers simple, partnership-based solutions to improve our communication and intimacy by honoring ourselves and others. And she is known for her insight, her sense of humor, her ability to articulate the human experience, and the predicament of gender. So again, Alison, I'm so pleased that you're here with us.
Thank you, Neil. I'm glad to be here.
And today we're talking about healing the shadow in your relationships. And Alison, you don't necessarily use the term shadow, but I do know that you talk a lot about our blind spot, what is blocking us from creating the love that we desire. So I would love to hear, you work with men and women, and you've got a very unique perspective about, how the two genders interact with each other. So let's start with women. What do you think that blocks women from creating the love we desire?
Well, I love the term shadow or blind spot because one of the most difficult things for people to see is where are you seeing from? Yes. So we would call it your point of view. What is your point of view? What's the balcony you're standing on that determines everything you can see? And one of the biggest blocks that women have to loving men, not just emotionally, but like as an action, as a way of life, is that we see from comparing men and women, including ourselves, to an idealized woman. So we judge men by what the perfect woman would have done. And we also judge ourselves by what the perfect woman would have done. So we literally live in a sea of criticism, which is why if anybody even gives a hint of criticism, it's the straw that breaks the camel's back, because we're already just living surrounded by it. Criticism, there's this voice in our head criticizing us and then criticizing men. And every time a man doesn't do what the perfect woman would have done, then there's all this meaning we add to it, that if he loved me more, he would have done it, that, what I would have done, or if he cared about me more, he would have done what I would have done. And then it goes, very quickly, just like spirals down into, and how come he doesn't love me enough is because I'm not perfect. Yes. And so if I were perfect, he would act perfectly. And this leaves women in this endless cycle of self-improvement or pretense. Like we know we're not perfect, but we try to pretend to be what we think is perfect. And authenticity is one of the most attractive qualities to men. So when we're, and self-confidence is the most attractive, right? So self-confidence is number one, authenticity is number two. So when we're constantly having this voice in our head criticizing us, we don't have confidence. And then we would try to pretend to be perfect. Now we're inauthentic. And it keeps, so this comparing men to women and ourselves to a perfect woman, it keeps us from seeing who a man really is. You can't actually see a man from that point of view. He's on the other side of the resort. And we can't have confidence or authenticity. We're cut off from ourselves. So we might as well just like...
I was going to say, you just articulated, I think, better than anybody else ever has, the total predicament that everybody is in. You know, I hear this from people dating, I hear this from people in relationships, and it all starts with this concept, this archetype of the ideal woman. Now, who on earth placed that inside of us to begin with?
Well, I've never met a woman without that voice. And other people have called it different things, like the critic or the critical voice. And my belief actually is that it's a survival mechanism. Women survive by adapting, and that voice tells us how to adapt. And that voice is updated. It's culturally current, and it can have us walk into any situation and perceive what's valued there. So the definition of perfection is upgraded. And I think it is has a lot to do with our success. Like in the business world, there's a lot of things that it can't see. Like it doesn't see masculine ethics, for example, in the workplace. So we're basically farting at the dinner table all the time. But it does let us. It's very, very perceptive, and it's a good source of information. I think the problem is when we think it's us. So we think that I'm thinking that, and therefore I should act on that. And so we give it what I would call command control and the veto power. And I'm all for relegating that. I point right here because my voice is right here. It's one of the things I like women to figure out is, okay, where's that voice? Because then if the thinking is coming from that place, you know, okay, advisory board. That's just an advisory board. This is just information. Don't necessarily act on it. It's not always accurate.
Very interesting. I love that you said it's part of our survival self, because I call the shadow part of our survival self. It's just out there monitoring where's the warning, where's the danger, and putting up the defenses. And when you've got your defenses up, you can't let love in. And,
right.
You know, I thought it was all of these magazines coming at us, telling us how to improve ourselves and get your better hairdo and get your better makeup and all that. But it sounds to me from what you're saying that the magazines are simply reflecting an archetype from perhaps our caveman times to constantly be coming from survival so that women can learn to adapt. That is so beautiful. I think you just freed a heck of a lot of us right there. Yeah, go ahead.
People ask me sometimes, how do I tell the difference between what the ideal woman is saying and something I'm thinking, like a way that I truly think I should improve myself? And near as I can tell, you can tell the difference by how do you feel. And when we're making conscious choices about a way that we want to grow, we feel empowered. We're excited by it. We have energy about it. That voice will it's like kicking you in the gut when you're already down. So that voice will never empower you. It'll actually make you feel worse about yourself.
There you go. That's the difference. That's great. So let's talk about men. What blocks the men? And is it different or is it the same for men?
Well, I would say actually that it's different. In a couple of ways. So yes, men have trouble seeing women. They think women are a kind of man, that women are a softer, more lovely, scattered, emotionally indulgent men. and so they try to interact with us as if we're a man and that we think like a man and communicate like a man, or at least we should. They're less condemning, though, because they don't take as much personally. So like we take it personally when a man doesn't act like a woman, and we're hurt, and then we also want to punish him and train him to act right because we see him as knowing the right thing to do and purposely doing something else, right? He's misbehaving. But a man sees a woman as she's just kind of confusing, but it's what he's got to put up with because he needs us. But he'll try to like have us, like one of the things men try to do is try to have women focus, so they're like a honey, just one thing at a time, right? But men do get hurt when a woman is distracted. He doesn't know how her brain works. So if he's talking to her and she goes and, turns the water off on the stove or something, or responds to a child, he thinks she made a conscious choice that was more important than he was. And then he'll get hurt by that. But one of the things that I see with men that really gets in the way of them having love from women is that they don't understand themselves. So one of the things men will do is they'll try to function on as little as they can stand, kind of as a matter of pride. So they don't get enough sleep, they don't get enough appreciation, they don't get enough alone time, they don't get transition time, they don't get enough sex, and it makes them really cranky. And especially when they don't get enough sleep is when men build testosterone when they're at rest. And so when they're lying on the couch, doing nothing, or when they're sleeping is when they build testosterone. And women are afraid of men with high levels of testosterone, but it's men with low levels of testosterone that are really cranky and irritable. And so they need to be left alone. They need to rest, and they need to be left alone when they get home from work, for example. They need transition time. So men not understanding what they need and trying to keep from upsetting their partner, they'll try to do what they think she needs, even when they don't have the capacity to do it. And they get snarky, and they and gruff, and when a man's like sounds angry or irritated, that gives what I would call a cavewoman attack. That's frightening to women. Yes. And that brings out the worst in her. So those are the things I would say. And then also, because men don't plan for what they need, because they're focused and they don't notice they're getting hungry, they don't notice they're getting frustrated or antsy, they don't notice they're getting tired until it breaks through what they're focused on. And so when it finally breaks through, if what they need from someone else, how they ask is a real turnoff. So like when a man finally, like his need for sex breaks through his single focus and he can't think of anything else, he's like, let's do it.
Yeah. And then the woman goes, really then the woman says, forget it. That's not seductive to me. So.
Right. Or where's dinner? Yeah. Like there's a way that they ask that actually makes women resist. And it's because they don't know they actually need to schedule what they need and in their relationship to actually have it scheduled and have a routine and a ritual about it that allows them to get what they need in a way that leaves their partner wanting to give them more of what they need.
Do you actually teach men to take care of themselves? Because it sounds like this is something that they need. Would they take a class in it?
Actually, we started a class about 5 years ago called A Hero's Challenge, Being an Extraordinary Man. And it teaches men how to recognize what they need and what it's cost them to not get it. It teaches them how to figure out exactly how much and how often they need what they need. It teaches men how to ask for what they need in a way that inspires people to give it. And then it teaches men how to receive, because another problem that men have, receiving is not a natural thing for a man to do. And so we actually have to transform it from a feminine expression to a masculine expression for them to be able to do it. And that's one of the things we do in the workshop. But one of the things that gets in the way of men being great receivers is their relationship to details, which is spare me the details, right? They're not into details. And so I'm always teaching men, if you cough up a couple of details when you appreciate a woman, then that feeds us. So if you don't just say thanks for dinner, if you say thanks for dinner, the steak was delicious, or thanks for the sex, you were luscious tonight, or like just one little detail, right, would just have us be, what else can I do for you, right? But instead they just like go, ugh. which is, they're not misbehaving either, but so much is unsaid between men. They know there's appreciation. They know that what the other guy needs. So men leave a lot unsaid, and it's instinctive, but it gets in the way. It really gets in the way.
They don't have necessarily the words for what their experience is. They're experiencing it. They're there. They're present, but they don't have the words. They don't have the words. They don't have the words. So they're, but they don't have the words. But have the words. They don't. But their words. So they have the. They don't. But have the words. So they don't.
Around their 50s, as men's testosterone levels naturally lower, their brain reconfigures, and the parts of the brain that weren't connected before start connecting, including a whole bunch more connections are made to the verbal centers of the brain. And this is what gives a man access to his own wisdom and his emotions. And this is when they start having a lot of words, and they can describe what they're feeling. And they start talking a lot more. And it's kind of tricky, because if we're of similar ages, when we are going through menopause, our estrogen levels are falling off. So our testosterone is taking the forefront. Our brains are reconfiguring. We're getting more focused.
Yes.
We don't like being interrupted anymore. We stop being able to listen for a really long time. And so they're getting all chatty, and we're like, seriously, I'm working on something. So it switches.
Yes.
Just to keep life interesting, it switches.
So you mentioned that it's difficult for men to receive, but I find a lot of women have problems receiving too. Do you find that? And do you know why that could be possibly true?
Yeah, it's actually something that I've been working on for over 20 years. Most women are terrible at receiving.
Yeah.
And for several reasons. One is both men and women are plagued by the idea of deserving. So being worthy of something, which literally means that you earned it. So it means it really means that you're equal to it by who you are, what you did, that you deserve something. And unfortunately, most people have a really extreme relationship to deserving. So they will have these ideas about what they're entitled to and what they deserve that other people don't agree with. Like, no, I don't owe you that. And then on the other hand, they don't feel like they've earned something, like especially men. Was actually one of the things I was going to say that blocks men is there's something I call the deserving equation. And there's a masculine deserving equation and there's a feminine deserving equation. So we figure out what we deserve differently. And the masculine deserving equation will often have us not feel like we deserve enough. And what that means is when someone tries to give something to us, sorry about that, when someone tries to give something to us, we think if we receive it, now we'll be in debt to them. If we haven't earned it yet, then we'll be obligated to earn it in arrears. And for women, for example, we're afraid that how we'll have to earn it is by providing sex. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If I let you do all this for me, then I'm going to owe you sex, and I don't want to do that. And so women will keep turning men down, like just for nice things, just men being really kind and taking care of us. And they don't think they deserve sex for that. In fact, when I tell them that women buy their own dinner in order to not owe them sex, because trading sex for food goes back literally to caveman and cavewoman days. And they're just astonished. They're like, really? I could have gotten sex? Yeah, it's pretty funny. So for men, the masculine deserving equation is a lifetime equation. And it's what all the good they've ever done in their life minus all the harm they haven't forgiven themselves for. And the result is what they deserve. And one of the things that women don't know is how accountable men hold themselves to be. And we think they don't, because when we're bitching at them about not acting like a woman, they dodge that. They're not going to be held to account for not doing what a woman would have done. They think that's ridiculous. And so we think since they won't be accountable for not acting like a woman, that they won't be accountable at all. But in my study of men for over 20 years, and now teaching men how to honor themselves, it's astonishing what men hold themselves accountable for that the people involved wouldn't have held him accountable for that. And he hasn't forgiven himself for it. And so I know men who won't ask for anything that they need because they think they don't deserve it.
Wow. And I bet some of this deservability factor comes from that critical voice that, you're not the ideal woman, you're not the ideal person, all of that, I'm sure. So we're feeling like we need to earn it, which is why we can't receive it. And this just all makes so much sense. So let's get to some solutions. Like, what's the single biggest thing that a woman can do to create more love in her life?
Well, can I tell you more than one?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So on the same topic of deserving, for both men and women, I would get over it. Because you just have to step back a moment and notice how much you as an individual want to give, how much you want to give, how much you love giving, how much it fulfills you when someone lets you give to them, that you're actually giving them the gift. They're giving you a gift by receiving from you. And so just turn that around, that when you're lousy at receiving, you're actually hurting people. You're actually depriving them of the opportunity to give what is theirs to give. Yeah. And this is how we transform receiving for men, is they figure out that being a great receiver is actually being a great provider, that they're providing an opportunity for someone they love to express themselves. And so you have to recognize that. If you just see how much you want to give and then realize you're just an ordinary person, everyone wants to give and no one's receiving. So quit worrying about deserving it. No one really needs you to give back. What they need is appreciation. They need to be seen. They need someone to go, wow, thank you for this. And thank you for how you care about me, that you wanted to give me this. And thank you for the future that this is going to give to me. So it's not giving back that fixes that deserving. It's real appreciation. And whenever a man or a woman complains about that they give too much, it's not because the person didn't give back. It's because they didn't appreciate it, meaning they didn't receive it well. Right. So that would be something for both people, for both men and women. Something I would encourage women to do, and we don't teach this until one of our most advanced courses, but it can change your life. And it's to think about the qualities that you really need in another human being to nurture who you are, first to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel seen, to feel like you have a partner. What are those qualities? And then look at every man. And I mean every man. I don't mean just romantic interests. I mean 10-year-old men and 80-year-old men and men at work. Look at every man with the question in your mind, how is this man that? So say, for example, what you need is generosity. So how is this man generous? How is this man generous? How is this man generous? So we normally only see the qualities we need the way the perfect woman would express them, or the way that our dad expressed it, or our favorite ex-boyfriend expressed it. And then we judge everybody by that. Yeah. So what we really need is to develop eyes. We need to develop the ability to see these qualities in a rainbow of expressions. And not only will that change your experience of life, like suddenly life will be abundant in what you need, but it'll have men experience being seen by you, because mostly men run around not being seen at all. All that's happening is as compared to the perfect person, and they're wrong. And every once in a while they're wonderful because they act just like they were supposed to be, but the rest of the time they're just wrong. And so they experience not being seen at all. So if you're looking at a man and he's talking about his job and you're wondering, so how is this man generous? Or how is this man smart? Or how is this man compassionate? Or how is this man, whatever the quality is, if you're listening that way, you're going to see him differently and he's going to experience being seen.
Well, I love that because I always teach everybody what we focus on grows. So you just put your focus on what you want and suddenly you're going to see it everywhere. And so many women say, I can't seem to have the life I want. Well, are you focusing on what you don't want, or are you focusing on what you don't have or what you don't like? And that's, again, your idea of the critical person inside of us, the inner critic. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, I love how you said that what you pay attention to, you get more of, right? Yeah. And what you focus on grows. And that's really what receptivity is. It's appreciating and expressing appreciation for what you value. And literally appreciation means to increase the value of. So I'm telling both men and women all the time, anything you want more of, you're going to get it if you're appreciating it. So if you get 1 grain of sand of that thing you need and you appreciate that, then, sooner or later you're going to end up with a beach. Like if you just keep appreciating it. And like one man said, he said, how come I get 100 points or 0? How come I never get 80 points? Right? And if we gave him that 80 points, you give a man 80 points, he's like pumped up, and then he's wondering, okay, what do I need to do to get 100? How can I get 100? And instead, we focus on the 20% that he didn't do, thinking that'll inspire him to work harder. No, that makes him not want to work at all.
Yeah. And we do the same thing to ourselves. It's like, where am I not enough? I got to keep working on this. And that's what makes us not deserve. And then that makes us not receive, and on and on and on. Well,
yeah, we call it right down into the toilet.
That's it. I have a client who says down into the rabbit hole. That's it. That's it.
I wish it were only a rabbit hole, but that rabbit hole's full with a lot of pick whatever word you want.
Yeah, it's more like a toilet. Yeah, you're right.
It's a sewer down there.
Alison, I could talk to you on and on and on, but our time has come to an end, and I'm so appreciative and grateful of everything, all the wisdom that you have shared with us today. You really have a very unique perspective, and I love the way you articulate. And of course, I'm a graduate of 3 of your courses myself, so I highly recommend them to everybody. And we have links down here to Alison's website where people can go and learn more about you. So any parting words of wisdom as we are thanking you for being with us?
Well, in the introduction, you gave one of my favorite questions, which is, what if no one's misbehaving, including you? And I've been on a campaign for a long time for women to give up emasculating men. And now I'm on a campaign for women to give up emasculating men, women, and themselves. And criticism is one of the ways that we most emasculate. It's how we reduce everyone's ability to produce results. And what if you gave up the right to criticize yourself?
Wow.
What could happen?
That's great parting words right there. Let's all contemplate that. Let's all meditate on that. And again, thank you so much for being with us, Alison.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure, Neela.
And we will see you all on the next installment of Heal the Shadow in Your Relationships, too. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.